China builds secret military island in Pacific Ocean. Satellite images reveal weapons aimed directly at United States. Pentagon response begins immediately. This is NavyWire. National Reconnaissance Office analysts reviewing routine satellite imagery detect something unusual. An island that wasn't there 6 months ago. Location: 850 nautical miles southeast of Guam. International waters. Deep Pacific. No territorial claims. No historical significance. But now there's an island, and it's not natural. The images come from KH-11 reconnaissance satellites. Resolution classified, but good enough to count individual vehicles. Good enough to identify weapon systems. Good enough to see what China doesn't want anyone to see. The island measures 2,400 feet long, 800 feet wide, roughly rectangular, elevated 15 feet above sea level. Constructed from dredged material, reinforced concrete, and steel sheet piling driven into the ocean floor at depths exceeding 180 feet. This isn't land reclamation near existing territory. This is artificial island construction in the middle of nowhere. Why build an island 850 miles southeast of Guam? Because that position puts it directly along shipping lanes, directly along air routes, directly between American forces in Guam and American allies in Australia. Perfect strategic position, perfect surveillance location, perfect missile platform. The satellite images reveal construction activity. 3 large buildings, what appear to be radar installations, 2 docks capable of handling military vessels, and most concerning, what intelligence analysts identify as vertical launch system cells, missile launchers, pointed northeast, toward Guam. The Pentagon receives the briefing at 0630 hours on October 8th. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin convenes immediate meeting. Joint Chiefs present. Indopacom Commander on video link. CIA Director, National Security Advisor. This is potential crisis. The analysis begins immediately. How did China build this island without detection? Review of historical satellite imagery provides answers. Construction started 7 months ago, March 2025. They used specialized dredging vessels, heavy lift cranes, modular construction techniques, working at night, using weather cover, timing operations between satellite passes. The construction pattern matches China's South China Sea operations. Similar techniques used to build Fiery Cross Reef, Subi Reef, Mischief Reef. But those islands were built near Chinese territorial waters, near disputed claims. This new island? 800 miles from Chinese territory. Completely unprecedented. What's your assessment of this threat? Type A for immediate military action. Type B for diplomatic pressure. Type L for increased surveillance. NavyWire has tracked Chinese island construction for years, but this represents escalation beyond anything previously attempted. Building military installations in international waters, claiming sovereignty over artificially created land, deploying weapon systems that threaten U.S. forces and allies. The Pentagon's response develops in layers. First layer, intelligence gathering. Deploy additional satellite resources. Redirect reconnaissance assets. Task submarines with close observation. Get detailed information on what China deployed on this island. What weapons? What sensors? What personnel? Second layer, diplomatic engagement. State Department protests to Beijing. Demands explanation. Demands removal of military installations. China's response. They claim the island sits on submerged feature within their 9-line claim. Therefore, Chinese territory. Therefore, sovereign right to build military base. The United States rejects this argument. International law is clear. Artificial islands don't generate territorial waters, don't generate exclusive economic zones. China can't simply build islands and claim sovereignty. That's not how law of the sea works. Third layer, military response. Indopacom develops operation plan, show of force, demonstrate U.S. resolve, make clear that Chinese island doesn't restrict American operations, that international waters remain international, that freedom of navigation continues regardless of Chinese construction projects. Stay with me. The Pentagon's plan gets more aggressive than anyone expected. October 15, 2025. USS Ronald Reagan Carrier Strike Group receives orders. Transit to position near Chinese artificial island. Conduct flight operations. Demonstrate U.S. Navy operates wherever international law permits. The Reagan battle group includes 6 ships. The carrier, 3 Arleigh Burke-class destroyers, 1 Ticonderoga-class cruiser, 1 Virginia-class submarine operating below. The Reagan is a Nimitz-class supercarrier, 1,092 feet long, 97,000 tons, nuclear-powered, carries 60-plus aircraft, FA-18 Super Hornets, F-35C Lightning IIs, E-2D Hawkeye surveillance planes. The air wing alone represents more combat power than most nations' entire air forces. Captain Rachel Martinez commands the Reagan, 24 years Navy service, 3rd Carrier Command Tour. She's operated in contested waters before, South China Sea, Taiwan Strait. But this mission is different. This time China has missiles 850 miles from Guam. This time the threat is closer, more dangerous. The battle group approaches the artificial island on October 18th. Distance, 50 nautical miles. The Reagan launches combat air patrol, 4 F-35C Lightning IIs, stealth fighters, most advanced aircraft in U.S. inventory. They fly reconnaissance patterns, photograph the island, map radar emissions, identify weapons systems. The intelligence gathered is alarming. The island contains more than initially thought. Satellite imagery showed 3 buildings. Aerial reconnaissance reveals 6 structures, underground facilities, hardened bunkers. The missile launchers aren't just VLS cells. They're TEL vehicles, transporter erector launchers, mobile systems, potentially housing DF-26 intermediate-range ballistic missiles. The DF-26 has range exceeding 2,500 miles, can carry conventional or nuclear warheads, designed as carrier killer like the DF-21D, but longer range, more sophisticated guidance, harder to intercept. If China deployed DF-26 on this island, they can threaten Guam. They can threaten carriers operating across huge swaths of Pacific Ocean. They can hold at risk critical U.S. military infrastructure and allied nations throughout the region. NavyWire analysis confirms this represents China's most aggressive move yet, where elite naval power meets strategic competition, the weapons, the location, the implications. Captain Martinez receives updated orders. Don't just observe, operate. Launch flight operations within 12 nautical miles of the island. Demonstrate that U.S. Navy doesn't recognize Chinese sovereignty claims over artificial structures in international waters. This is freedom of navigation operation taken to maximum intensity. The Reagan turns into the wind. Flight deck crews prepare for operations. October 19th, 0600 hours. First launch. 2 FA-18 Super Hornets catapult off the deck. They fly directly toward the island. Altitude 5,000 feet. Speed 450 knots. Combat configuration. Armed with AMRAAM air-to-air missiles and JDAM precision-guided bombs. Not for attack, but for self-defense capability demonstration. The Chinese track every move. Their radar systems light up. Multiple fire control radars, search radars. The island's defensive systems go active. Air defense missiles ready to launch. Surface-to-air systems oriented toward incoming aircraft. The Chinese message is clear. Come closer and we engage. The Super Hornets maintain course. They enter the 12-mile zone, technically international airspace. The law of the sea allows innocent passage. But innocent becomes debatable when military aircraft overfly disputed installations. The pilots know their provoking response. That's the mission. Demonstrate American willingness to operate despite Chinese weapons. Chinese radio communications spike. Warning messages broadcast on guard frequency. Unknown aircraft. You are approaching Chinese territory. Alter course immediately. Unauthorized overflight will result in defensive measures. The Super Hornet pilots don't respond. They maintain course. Overfly the island at 5,000 feet. Photograph everything. Record all radar emissions. Map the entire facility. Then they turn back toward the Reagan. Mission complete. No shots fired, but message delivered. China responds predictably. State media condemns U.S. provocation. Foreign Ministry spokesman calls it violation of sovereignty. Military spokesman warns of serious consequences. But no actual military action. No missiles launched. No aircraft scrambled. Just words. Because China faces dilemma. If they shoot down U.S. aircraft over disputed island, they start war. War they might not win. War that could destroy their economy, their trade, their global position. So they protest, they posture, but they don't shoot. What would you have done in Captain Martinez's position? Comment your tactical approach below. The Reagan continues operations. Daily flight ops. Multiple sorties overflying the island. Each flight gathers more intelligence. Each flight demonstrates American resolve. Each flight challenges Chinese claims without escalating to combat. This is gray zone operations. Not peace, not war. Something in between. The submarine component reveals even more concerning details. USS Mississippi, the Virginia-class attack sub, approaches the island underwater. Periscope depth observations. Special operations forces deploy from the submarine using underwater delivery vehicles to conduct close-range reconnaissance of the island's underwater structures and defensive installations. These covert operations provide critical intelligence on the island's vulnerabilities and construction methods. The submarine's surveillance reveals underwater sensor networks, sonar arrays, submarine detection systems. The Chinese have fortified the island against subsurface approach. They're protecting against exactly what the Mississippi is doing. But Virginia-class boats are quiet, extremely quiet. The Chinese sensors likely don't detect the American submarine operating nearby. The Mississippi identifies another threat, what appears to be submarine pen under construction, underwater docking facility. This would allow Chinese submarines to operate from the island, resupply, rearm, rest crew, extend operational range. A submarine base 850 miles southeast of Guam represents major strategic threat to U.S. Pacific operations and disrupts established undersea warfare advantages that American forces have maintained for decades. The intelligence gets forwarded to Pacific Fleet Command. They compile comprehensive assessment. The Chinese island isn't just observation post, it's forward operating base, its missile platform, its potential submarine facility, its permanent military installation designed to project power deep into Pacific Ocean. Superior intelligence, advanced analysis, NavyWire. The Pentagon faces difficult decisions. What to do about this island? Options range from diplomatic pressure to military action. Each option carries risks. Each option has consequences. Option 1. Diplomatic campaign. Rally allies. Australia, Japan, Philippines, South Korea. Build international coalition opposing Chinese island. United Nations resolutions. International Court of Justice case. Economic pressure. This approach takes time. Might not work. China has veto power in UN Security Council. International law has no enforcement mechanism without willing nations. Option 2. Economic sanctions. Target Chinese companies involved in construction. Freeze assets. Ban technology transfers. Coordinate with allies on export controls. This might hurt Chinese economy, but it also hurts American businesses. Supply chain disruptions. Higher prices. Political costs at home. Option 3. Military options. These range from limited to extreme. Limited response involves what Reagan is already doing. Freedom of navigation operations. Regular overflights. Demonstrating presence. This doesn't remove the island but establishes that U.S. Navy won't be deterred by Chinese construction. More aggressive military option involves blockade. Prevent Chinese ships from resupplying the island. Cut off food, fuel, ammunition. Force China to either back down or escalate. But blockade is act of war. Would require congressional authorization. Could trigger Chinese military response. Most extreme option, destroy the island. Carrier strike group launches massive air assault. Tomahawk missiles from submarines and surface ships. F-35C and Fa-18 delivering precision-guided munitions. Reduce the facilities to rubble. Sink the docks. Crater the runway. This removes the threat, but it guarantees war with China. The Pentagon recommends Option 1 plus Enhanced Option 3. Diplomatic pressure combined with sustained military operations. The Reagan battle group maintains presence. Other carriers rotate through. Constant pressure. Constant surveillance. Constant demonstration that Chinese island doesn't restrict U.S. operations. President makes final decision. Approves sustained presence operations. Approves intelligence gathering. Approves freedom of navigation transits. But no kinetic action. No attacks on island. Not unless China escalates first. Not unless they fire on U.S. forces. The goal remains deterrence, not war. If you believe naval presence deters aggression, type NavyWire in the comments. October 25th. Chinese cargo ship approaches the island, loaded with construction materials, additional weapons, supplies. The Reagan battle group monitors. 2 destroyers, USS Mustin and USS Benfold, position themselves near the cargo ship's projected route. Not blocking, not interfering, just watching, making Chinese crew nervous, demonstrating awareness. The cargo ship alters course, takes longer route to island, avoids close approach to U.S. warships. It reaches the island, offloads cargo. The construction continues. More buildings, more facilities. The island grows. China isn't backing down. They're doubling down. The diplomatic campaign makes limited progress. Australia condemns the island. Japan protests. Philippines files complaint. But China ignores it all. They've invested hundreds of millions in construction. They've deployed military personnel. They've established what they claim is sovereign territory. They're not abandoning it based on diplomatic complaints. The Reagan continues operations through November. 53 days on station. Daily flight ops. Constant surveillance. The crew performs exceptionally. Flight deck operations in all weather. Refueling. Rearming. Launching. Recovering. 24 hours per day. 7 days per week. This is what carrier operations look like. Sustained. Professional. Relentless. The air wing logs 847 flight hours around the Chinese island. They map every building, every vehicle, every weapon system. They identify personnel strength, approximately 400 Chinese military on the island. They document ship traffic, 17 vessels in November alone. They track construction progress, 3 new structures and expanded runway capable of handling fighter aircraft. NavyWire obtained declassified portions of the intelligence summary. The island now hosts sophisticated radar systems, JY-27A wideband surveillance radar, Type 346A active electronically scanned array radar. These systems can detect aircraft at extreme ranges, can track dozens of targets simultaneously, can provide targeting data for long-range missiles. The island has become what Pentagon calls an anti-access area denial node, designed to keep U.S. forces away from specific ocean areas. The missile systems are confirmed as DF-26 intermediate-range ballistic missiles. 4 launchers. Each launcher carries 1 missile, but the island has reload capability, underground magazines. Total missile capacity estimated at 16 DF-26s. That's enough to threaten every major U.S. base in Pacific, Guam, Hawaii, Diego Garcia, and enough to engage carrier strike groups operating throughout the region. But the Reagan demonstrated something critical. Despite Chinese missiles, despite radar systems, despite surface-to-air defenses, U.S. Navy operates anyway, flies missions, maintains presence, shows that Chinese island doesn't create exclusion zone, doesn't restrict American freedom of navigation or overflight. Which technology dominates future Pacific security? Type A for aircraft carriers, Type B for long-range missiles, Type C for submarines. The submarine component of operations yields even more intelligence. USS Mississippi conducted 23 reconnaissance approaches, mapped underwater terrain, identified sonar systems, located underwater power cables running from mainland. These cables provide electricity to the island. Without them, the island depends on generators, vulnerable to fuel supply disruption. Mississippi also tracks Chinese submarine activity. Type 039A. UN-class boats transit through the area. They're using the island as waypoint, possibly as planned resupply location once the submarine pen completes. The American submarine documents everything: courses, speeds, acoustic signatures. This intelligence helps U.S. Navy track Chinese submarines more effectively across the Pacific. By December 2025, the situation stabilizes at uncomfortable equilibrium. China maintains the island, continues construction, keeps weapons deployed. The U.S. maintains presence operations. Reagan Battle Group rotates out. USS Abraham Lincoln Battle Group rotates in. Continuous carrier presence near Chinese artificial island. New normal. The Pentagon assesses long-term implications. This island represents template for future Chinese expansion. Build artificial islands in international waters. Claim sovereignty. Deploy weapons. Create facts on the ground, or in this case, facts on the water. If successful here, China might build more islands, create network of bases across Pacific, threaten U.S. access to entire ocean areas. The counter-strategy focuses on making the island model too expensive, maintain constant pressure, make China dedicate resources to defending isolated installations, force them to supply distant bases, tie down military assets protecting vulnerable infrastructure, make each island cost more than it's worth strategically. The Reagan's flight operations prove the concept. China spent hundreds of millions building the island, deployed sophisticated weapons, stationed 400 personnel, but they can't prevent U.S. aircraft from operating nearby, can't restrict American naval movements, can't achieve area denial objective. The island exists, but it doesn't accomplish intended strategic effect. Military analysts at NavyWire assess the cost-exchange ratio. China spent approximately $800 million building the island. Annual operating costs estimated at $150 million. Personnel, supplies, maintenance, fuel. For that investment, they get radar coverage and potential missile platform. But U.S. Navy negates those advantages through sustained presence operations, costing roughly $45 million per month for carrier strike group operations. A sustainable expenditure given the strategic importance of maintaining freedom of navigation and demonstrating resolve. Over 10 years, China might spend $2.3 billion on this one island. The U.S. spends comparable amounts maintaining pressure. But here's the key difference. U.S. expenditure maintains freedom of navigation for global shipping, protects allies, upholds international law, demonstrates commitment to free and open Indo-Pacific. That's worth the cost. China's expenditure achieves limited tactical advantage. Radar coverage that U.S. Navy operates through anyway. Missiles that haven't deterred American presence. Facilities that require constant resupply and defense. The strategic return on investment favors the United States despite higher operational costs. The diplomatic dimension continues evolving. Australia offers support. They deploy RAAF P-8A Poseidon aircraft for surveillance missions. Japan provides intelligence sharing. South Korea coordinates military exercises. Philippines allows U.S. forces to use bases for resupply. The coalition builds strength. China finds itself increasingly isolated. Russia offers verbal support, but no material assistance. Most nations recognize that if China can build armed islands in international waters, any powerful nation could do the same. That threatens global order, threatens stability. Most countries prefer a rules-based system to might makes right approach. The United Nations General Assembly debates resolution condemning artificial islands in international waters. China blocks it through procedural measures. But the debate itself matters. It establishes international consensus against this practice, creates foundation for future action if China builds more islands. The quiz answer: China built a 2,400-foot artificial island 850 miles southeast of Guam, equipped it with DF-26 ballistic missiles, advanced radar systems, and air defense networks. The island can threaten U.S. bases and carrier strike groups across vast areas of Pacific Ocean. Pentagon responded with sustained freedom of navigation operations. USS Ronald Reagan battle group conducted 847 flight hours around the island. Multiple overflights directly above the facility. Submarine reconnaissance revealed underwater defenses and planned submarine pen. The operations demonstrated that Chinese island doesn't restrict U.S. Navy access to international waters. 3 questions for you. Should the U.S. military take stronger action against Chinese artificial islands? Can carrier strike groups effectively operate despite land-based missile threats? What happens if China builds 10 more islands across the Pacific? Subscribe to NavyWire, where elite naval operations meet strategic analysis. We cover the weapons, the tactics, the intelligence, the geopolitical implications of modern naval power. Hit subscribe. Enable notifications. Next episode reveals classified submarine capabilities that change everything you think you know about undersea warfare.